She was 13 years old, standing under lights she had never felt before, in a country she had only ever seen on television. The band struck its first chord. Her voice came out low, almost shy, and then it cracked wide open into something raw, gravelly, and enormous, a sound that seemed to belong to a woman 3 times her age. 4 famous judges froze. An entire theater went silent, then erupted. In the space of 90 seconds, a schoolgirl from a small English village became one of the most talked-about performers in the world. But the real story of Courtney Hadwin isn't just about that single golden moment. It's about what it costs a child to carry a gift that big. The sacrifice, the heartbreak of coming so close and falling short, the years spent rebuilding an identity after the cameras moved on, and the quiet, stubborn work of becoming an artist on her own terms. This is her story, as it actually happened. Courtney Hadwin was born in 2004 and grew up in Heselden, a small village in County Durham, in the northeast of England. She has a younger brother, Paul, and a younger sister, Melissa. Her parents, Paul and Anne-Marie Hadwin, raised their children in a modest, close-knit corner of the country, far from any music industry spotlight, the kind of place where a career in show business seemed like something that happened to other people in other towns on other continents. Music found Courtney early. She has said that one of her first vivid musical memories was hearing James Brown for the first time and being stunned by how much raw feeling one voice could hold. As a young girl, she gravitated toward the classic soul, blues, and rock records her family played. Aretha Franklin, Etta James, Janis Joplin. Voices that were textured, imperfect, and utterly honest. Something about that grit spoke to her more than the polished pop music most children her age were listening to. By the time she was in primary school in Heselden and later at the academy at Shotton Hall in nearby Peterlee, Courtney was already performing whenever she could. She trained at Shotton Hall Theater School, took lessons with several local vocal coaches, and in a detail that says a great deal about how badly she wanted this. She and her family funded some of those singing lessons, partly through busking on the streets of London and New York. A young girl standing on a pavement with a microphone and a speaker, singing for spare change to pay for the training that might one day get her somewhere, is not a glamorous beginning. It's a working-class kid's version of paying dues. Her grandfather, Tom Story, later explained part of why the family chose to send her toward American television rather than British shows. He felt the UK doesn't get her. It's a small, telling line. Even those closest to Courtney could see that her voice, raspy, powerful, older than her years, didn't fit neatly into the kind of clean, technically pretty singing that talent shows in Britain tended to reward. She needed a bigger, rowdier stage. She got a chance at one closer to home first. In 2017, at age 12, Courtney competed on the first UK series of The Voice Kids, where she was coached and mentored by McFly's Danny Jones. She made it through to the live finals. It was a meaningful achievement, and it sharpened her performing instincts. But it wasn't yet the moment that would change her life. That was still a year away, on the other side of the Atlantic. In the summer of 2018, 13-year-old Courtney Hadwin traveled to the United States to audition for America's Got Talent. She chose to sing Otis Redding's Hard to Handle, a song with a swagger and grit built for a much older, much more seasoned performer. When she opened her mouth, the sound that came out didn't match the small, nervous-looking girl in front of the judges. It was hoarse, forceful, and completely unrestrained. She didn't just sing the song. She seemed to lose herself inside it, dancing and stomping across the stage as though the audience had disappeared. The judges, Simon Cowell, Heidi Klum, Howie Mandel, and Mel B, were visibly stunned. Howie Mandel was moved enough to press his golden buzzer, sending Courtney straight past the usual judging rounds and directly into the quarterfinals, along with a shower of gold confetti and a standing ovation from the entire room. The clip did what few audition videos ever do. It became a genuine global phenomenon. Her audition would eventually be watched hundreds of millions of times online, making it one of the most viewed clips to ever come out of the show. Newspapers across 2 continents ran features on the soul voice schoolgirl from County Durham. Almost overnight, a family that had been busking for lesson money was fielding interview requests from television programs on both sides of the Atlantic. A viral audition is a gift, but it's also a trap. Once the world has seen a person do something extraordinary, it expects them to do it again, bigger, every single time. For most adult performers, that pressure is hard enough. For a 13-year-old still doing schoolwork between rehearsals, it was an enormous weight to carry. Courtney met it head-on. In the quarterfinals, she sang James Brown's Papa's Got a Brand New Bag, dancing across the stage with the same unfiltered energy that had made her audition famous, and earned standing ovations from all 4 judges. In the semifinals, she tackled Steppenwolf's Born to be Wild, and Howie Mandel told her afterward that he believed she could win the entire competition. She advanced to the finals, the only British act in her season to make it that far, where she performed a cover of Tina Turner's River Deep Mountain High, once again drawing the audience to its feet. For the finale, in a performance that felt like a full-circle moment for a girl raised on classic rock and soul records, Courtney shared the stage with the British rock band The Struts to perform 2 Janis Joplin songs. The same Janis Joplin whose voice she had long been compared to by critics and fans alike. And then, in front of a live national television audience, she lost. Courtney Hadwin finished the season in 6th place. Canadian-American magician Shin Lim was crowned the winner. For a contestant who had spent the entire season as the fan favorite, whose audition had more views than almost anyone else's, who judges had openly speculated might take the whole competition, it was a jarring, public disappointment. People who were in the audience that night have described an audible gasp rippling through the theater when the result was announced. Part of what happened, observers later suggested, was almost a consequence of her own popularity. An unusually large number of strong singers made the finals that year, several of whom likely split the same pool of votes among fans who assumed, wrongly, that Courtney's overwhelming online popularity made her safe and didn't need their vote. Host Tyra Banks told her gently that she should still be proud, that simply reaching the final 10, as a 14-year-old from a village most Americans had never heard of, was itself an achievement worth celebrating. But achievements don't always soften the sting of losing something you wanted badly, in front of millions of people, at 14 years old. Whatever pride Courtney felt in how far she'd come, she also had to process very public disappointment during a period of life when most people are still figuring out who they are in relative privacy. That combination, extraordinary exposure paired with a very ordinary, very human letdown, is its own kind of heartbreak, even without a single dramatic incident to point to. There were other disappointments still to come. Courtney signed a record deal with Simon Cowell's Psycho Entertainment and Arista Records in the aftermath of the show, and she was announced as a performer for the planned 50th anniversary edition of the Woodstock Festival in the summer of 2019, a booking that would have been a huge milestone for a 15-year-old still finding her footing as a recording artist. That festival collapsed amid organizational and financial problems before it ever happened, and the moment Courtney had been building towards simply evaporated. What followed her AGT run wasn't a straight line to stardom. It was something slower, messier, and in many ways more honest. A teenager trying to figure out who she was as an artist once the talent show format, the buzzer moments, and the judges' commentary were no longer shaping her story for her. Courtney has spoken candidly in interviews about taking her time rather than rushing to cash in on her viral fame. Instead of releasing an album immediately, she spent years writing, experimenting, and working with producers to develop a sound that was hers rather than simply an echo of the 13-year-old belting Otis Redding covers on a talent show stage. She released a string of singles over the following years, songs like That Girl Don't Live Here, Monsters, Breakable, Call Me Back, Jagged, Spellbound, and DNA, alongside cover versions of contemporary songs by artists like Harry Styles and Louis Capaldi, gradually building a catalog and an audience independent of the AGT machine that first introduced her to the world. She has described one of those songs, That Girl Don't Live Here, as being written from a genuinely difficult period, saying it let her put into words things she needed to say without fear of being judged for them. It's a rare, unguarded admission from a young public figure, an acknowledgement that the years after sudden fame weren't simply a victory lap, but also involved real struggle that she processed the way she'd always processed feeling, through music. By her late teens, Courtney had also grown into her voice quite literally, developing what she and collaborators have described as a rock-oriented sound rooted in the soul and blues influences of her childhood, but shaped increasingly by her own songwriting rather than borrowed hits. She worked with Grammy-winning producer Kevin Bowe, known for his work with artists like Etta James and Joe Cocker, and with producer John Fields, building toward the album she had been quietly assembling since she was a young teenager. In 2025, roughly 7 years after that first audition stopped a room full of strangers, Courtney Hadwin, by then in her early 20s, released her long-awaited debut album, Little Miss Jagged. She has described the project as an attempt to explore a single unified artistic statement across a wide range of genres, from pop and soul to blues and rock, comparing her ambitions for the record's structure to the way Queen wove together wildly different musical ideas within Bohemian Rhapsody. It was an album 7 years in the making, born out of a 13-year-old's viral moment and shaped by everything that happened in between: a heartbreaking finale loss on live television, a canceled festival booking that would have been a career highlight, the ordinary confusion of growing up while strangers on the internet debated your future, and the slow, patient work of relearning who you are once the cameras aren't guaranteed to be pointed at you anymore. Heading into 2026, Courtney has continued releasing new music, including songs like Changes and You Only Love Me When I Lie, and has spoken about preparing for a UK tour to bring the album to audiences live. In some ways, a homecoming for an artist who spent her most famous years performing thousands of miles from where she grew up. In interviews, she describes herself simply: a young woman from Yorkshire whose life has always revolved around music, still chasing the same feeling that first captivated her as a child listening to James Brown. There was no single catastrophic night that defined Courtney Hadwin's story. No accident, no scandal, no dramatic collapse for cameras to capture. The real heartbreak in her story is quieter and, in some ways, more relatable. It's the ache of losing something you worked desperately hard for in the most public way imaginable, at an age when most people are only just learning who they are. It's the vanishing of a milestone moment, a canceled festival, that can never quite be gotten back. It's a strange grief of fame arriving before identity does, and having to build the second thing while the whole world is still watching and judging the first. Courtney Hadwin's story isn't a cautionary tale about a child star who was broken by the industry. It's a story of a working-class girl from a village in County Durham who buskied on street corners to pay for singing lessons, who lost the biggest competition of her young life on national television, who watched a dream booking dissolve before it happened, and who kept singing anyway, on her own timeline, until she had something entirely her own to say. That, in the end, may be the more remarkable story. Not the girl who shocked America in 90 seconds, but the woman who spent the next 7 years proving that moment wasn't the whole of who she was.